Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at Pixel Kingdom from Plan52. This deck is the creation of Marco and Andre, a pair of video game designers who drew on their love of classic video games to create a deck that's inspired by the 16-bit era of video games. A lot of people are familiar with the 8-bit era with the NES, and some of those classic games like the original Super Mario Brothers. And there's been a lot of decks that have been inspired by 8-bit artwork. But this one really kind of leaps forward a generation and goes to the 16-bit games. And for me, growing up, these were games that I loved to play. Games like Sierra's King's Quest and other similar games. And for me, this is really where artwork sort of came to the forefront. With higher resolution, more colors, video game designers were able to put together much more vibrant and artistic games. Now for this deck, Marco and Andre worked with Artur Fast, a really talented artist, to put together the deck that you see here. So let's get right into it and see how they did. All right, starting with the tuck case, it's done on a glossy finish tuck case, but it's covered with both gold foil and embossing to kind of elevate it to the next level. All the artwork you see is, of course, pixelated in the style of that 16-bit video games that inspired it. You can see in the center that crown emblem, Pixel Kingdom underneath, and then the border on here is really ornate and all done in gold foil and embossing. Really kind of lends an air of luxury to the deck overall. And if I zoom in here, you can really get a good view of that pixelated artwork. So not quite as blocky as you'd see with 8-bit games or anything like that, but still definitely a good view of the pixels throughout that kind of give you that retro vibe to the deck overall. So really nicely done. That foil and the embossing ups the luxury on this one overall, and I think really well done in the front. On the sides, you got Pixel Kingdom on one side and on the other, pixelated font with the ad copy on the bottom. Mentions they're made in the USA. This deck is printed by the USPCC. Top just says Pixel Kingdom 2020 Red Edition, so kind of hinting that there might be some future versions of the deck to come. And the back has the back design of the cards done with some foiling and embossing to give it a little bit of an extra ornate feel. But we'll look more at the details of this as we get into the cards themselves. If you open up the flap, a little bit more gold foil and embossed artwork there. So lots of scroll work with the Holy Grail there in the center. You get a pixelated crown on the smaller inner flaps, and there's some light printing on the interior of the tuck as well. It's done in that light pink against the red. I like the addition of the interior printing, although I will say the reverse of that embossing kind of distracts from it, makes it a little bit hard to appreciate the interior artwork, but still a nice addition overall. So not bad on the tuck case. I think the embossing and the foil really added a lot to it, kind of helped it have a luxury feel to it overall. So nice job on those. All right, now going into the back design. The back design feels honestly relatively flat, especially after looking at that foiled and embossed tuck case. But I think it's still really nice and kind of has that both retro and classic feel to it. Has an almost monochrome look with just red and white as the primary colors. Although I will say there's a couple of different shades of red. If you look here in the center, you can see both the darker and the lighter red. This scene that's created on this one, obviously once again done in that pixel artwork, and features lots of sort of medieval themes throughout. You have those classically styled crowns forming the central element, and then the beautiful scroll work and patterning that forms the borders around the edge. And then dotted in there, you'll see things like the 4 queens in the corners, or the nymphs here on the side in the interior panel. You get the Holy Grail on the top and the bottom. So lots of different elements to look at, and I think they're all really beautifully brought together on the two-way back design. Finishes out with kind of a medium, a little bit thicker white poker border around the edge. So there's the back design, not too bad on those. Getting into the extra cards, we start out with a pair of jokers, both the black and the red, and they both feature a view of the classic jester. 2 in different poses, so you get one with the mask and the sword to decide, the other one with a kind of mocking bow with the staff, and of course you can get that great look at the artwork of the 16-bit video game era. This is really the first place that I think captures it especially well. Of course done in that highly pixelated style, but with enough colors and detail to really give you a nice vibrancy to these overall. You get the Joker font in the corners to complete these 2 jokers. So nicely done on those. I like those a lot. All right, other extra cards, you get one ad card for Pixel Kingdom with Plan52 mentioned at the bottom, as well as the artist Artur Fast at the top. And then you get a story card. So we'll talk a little bit more about the story as we get into the court cards themselves. But this one tells just the story of a few of the court cards in the deck. It kind of hinted that if there's future versions of the deck, they may reveal more of the story of others of the court cards. So I like that they had the idea of including background stories for the court cards themselves. I'm always a fan of that. So there's that if you want to read a little bit more about the story. All right, now getting into the 4 aces. There's no one power ace, but they all feature these beautiful and really highly ornate scrollwork inspired spade pips or pips in the center. Each one with that large pip and lots of beautiful detail. So kind of shows what, even with the highly pixelated artwork, just the level of detail that can be achieved with the art style. I think it's really well done. Of course, custom font and pip in the corner, done in that pixelated style, just in keeping with the rest of the deck. And as you go through all 4 of the cards, you can see that different style on each. I think it's just really beautifully done. So love the artwork on those. And I really like that there's no one power ace with the writing around it. I love keeping it simpler like this. So there's your 4 aces. Going into the number cards. So number cards have, of course, the pixelated spade pip there at the bottom, but on each one of these you'll get one of the pips that's replaced with that same pip that we saw on the aces. Normally I'm a big fan of including one pip on the number cards that's kind of a more custom style, but in this case I think there was a little bit of a miss. Whereas on the aces, having that large pip, you can really kind of still see the pixel details. I think on this one, when you shrink it down to this size, you really lose the pixelation. It's there if you look super close, but for me, it kind of pulls me out of that retro vibe of the whole deck to have something that's this ornate in the middle of each one of the number cards. So I think a little bit of a miss there. I would have preferred maybe even to just see these without the custom pip in the middle, but I still appreciate the effort on these. I just think it could have been a little bit better achieved. So for me, just a little bit too much detail for a pip that small. Just kind of breaks the illusion of the pixelated deck. But nice color in these. I like the non ornate pips on these. I think are actually really well done. So black cards are classic black. The red cards are kind of a brighter, vibrant, slightly orange red, I would say. But not too bad on the number cards overall. And then we get into the courts. And once again on the courts, we're going to get a good look at that really vibrant art style. My favorite part of the decks are definitely the brightness and the colors that are used to create the characters throughout. The first 3 court cards are going to be the 3 that are sort of involved in the story of this deck. So basically, it's the story primarily of the Jack of Spades, who was a great hero who actually worked in service to the King of Diamonds. Achieved great glory in service to the King of Diamonds, but eventually sort of became a little bit self-centered and eventually decided to seduce the Queen of Diamonds. After he did so, naturally the King of Diamonds became furious. The Jack of Spades and the King of Diamonds engaged in a duel. Each of them lost an eye, which is why you can see them here as the one-eyed court cards. And the Jack of Spades left to join the Spades court, where the Spades and the Diamonds eventually waged a 7-year-long war before the kingdoms were finally reunited. So that's the story behind the deck. Love the addition of a little bit of story on these, but taking a closer look at the court cards, you can really see the kind of cool and unique designs that are created on each one of these. I love the color scheme, kind of that, I don't know, I would call it more muted or almost a lot of earth tones to it, but with hits of the red and the greens and the blues that really kind of help bring these to life. All done on 2-way court styles. My one criticism is these do feel a little bit cramped with a lot of border around the edge. I would have liked to have seen these maybe expanded out a little bit more just so you could see a little bit more of that artwork and have it fill up some of this negative space around the edge. But as you flip through all the courts, you can see each one is a completely unique character, and I think the art on these is great. I mean, look at that. I love the Jack of Diamonds. That's probably my favorite one of the court cards. So great artwork, and it's a great tribute to both the custom art style in these, but then also you'll see things like the elements that are in their hands. You'll definitely get a feel of the classic bicycle cards in each one of these, whether it's the axes or the flowers that the queens are holding. So kind of has a feel of your classic bicycle deck while still bringing them to life with the beautiful artwork in this one. So that is the deck. Not too bad at all. A few things that I would have changed about it, those custom pips that were included on the number cards, and maybe a little bit larger characters on the core cards. But overall, I think it's a great tribute to a classic era of video games. Now, as far as the stock and the handling of the deck, this is done on the B stock from USPCC. And like a lot of USPCC's decks, they handle really smoothly. Cuts, fans, all of that are going to be great. Really can't complain too much about the handling of a USPCC deck. They're always great, just definitely a classic feel of them overall. Uses of the deck, I think this is really just a fun gameplay deck. Has a different feel to it overall. I think it's, ordinary enough that you could certainly use this for Magic, handles well enough for cardistry, but breaking this out for gameplay, I think that's really going to be the forte of this deck overall. Anyway, that's it. That is the look at Pixel Kingdom from Plan52. Hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.